Welcome to Hanging with the Hammer. Roll the intro. All right, welcome to Hanging with the Hammer. And today I have a guest, Chadwick Perry, and I also have somebody already on, YVS Drums. Awesome. Well, I think you were on 15 minutes ago. We'll see if you're still on in a moment. Uh, this is the fun of live streaming is actually getting things started and getting people in the stream. So it takes a few minutes sometimes. So let's do a little background check on you, Chadwick. You've been
Yeah,
on
man.
YouTube now pretty solidly since COVID, but did you start before COVID? Tell us about how you got
I
started in YouTube.
did. Well, a couple of years, but it all goes back to MySpace. Goodness gracious. MySpace is what I started Double Deuce Drums with when I was building drums for a low volume drum sets back then. But that was MySpace. And then right at the end of MySpace, I started seeing YouTube change. So I went to YouTube, but I never posted anything. I put a few things on and then I went away. Then about 3 years ago, I decided that I wanted to start writing songs. So I started writing songs and I started putting things on YouTube, just instrumental things to be background music. Because that's what I write is background music that goes behind scenes or different things. They're not meant to have catchy stuff. It's just noise to go behind a background of any kind of video. It's kind of what I write. So I started writing those things, and I started doing my first year 3 years ago. I did 12 videos. I did one video a month, writing a song, doing a video, do the whole thing. The next year, I decided to be more ambitious, and I went for one video a week. So I wrote one
You're breaking up,
song.
Chad, unfortunately.
COVID hit,
There you go.
but a couple of months.
You're breaking up a
Huh?
little bit, so
Oh, sorry.
yeah, I know.
Then, oh goodness, oh goodness, I don't even know where I can be. Let's see. I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to find somewhere to be closer to an internet signal. I don't
Well,
know if I am or not.
you can find
But
the router. If you
yeah,
find the
so
router, you'll be closer. So
I'm about 7 feet from it.
are you on DSL?
Really,
You on
I'm not
DSL?
kidding.
Cable.
Cable.
Oh man, it's Comcast. Well, you know what they say about Comcast, so
It's a struggle for me, man. It's a struggle. In Nashville, I'm on fiber with Google.
right.
So Google Fiber, I like a lot. It's fast. In Nashville, when I'm at home, it is so fast to work right there,
Yeah.
which is great. But yeah, so that's what I was doing. I did videos for a year, doing every single week, putting out a video, and that's what taught me how to kind of do it. Then
Yeah.
COVID hit. Then I got serious with it. Why not do it? And I decided to get on it every day. And so I went for a full year of content every single day, trying to do it. I didn't know what I was going to do that morning. The next day, I would have the video done. Every single day, that was like that. So,
Wow.
and I'm still that way with some of my stuff now. Like I don't know what I'm going to do next week. No idea.
Yeah.
And I just kind of throw it together.
Well, I think that's part of the charm of YouTube. You can do those kinds of things. I mean, I only work on the weekends. That's my thing, and I just somewhere around Thursday I start thinking of songs I might want to do, and then somewhere around Friday afternoon I start taking the songs and putting them in extract stems and cutting them, and Saturday and Sunday I just kind
Now,
of go ahead.
have you tried Moises out yet? Have you tried Moises out yet?
Nope,
The
nope.
app. It's fast, Earl. It's fast. It is so incredibly fast, and they just slide right into your DAW. Put the song in and send it over. It's quick. It's fast. It is. It's a neat idea for a phone app. A very
Well,
cool idea,
I
anyway.
guess the way you're working on an iPad, that makes a lot of sense. You
It
need
makes a
something that
lot of
gets
sense.
yeah,
I do most of my stuff on my phone, and then once I'm in my phone, I transfer it over to my iPad, and then I start spreading everything out. I create my intro of everything I do. Everything is done straight through an iPad because I don't use a laptop. I don't use a tower, nothing,
right,
and I don't use reference monitors either. I use my Sennheiser mixing headphones to do everything.
Yeah.
Everything. I sit on the couch beside my family, and I can mix and do everything while we're all together. I don't have to be in another room. That's kind of why I went to the iPad idea, so I could be around everybody. Because I thought music, when I was on my Pro Tools rig, I was always in my room and I was never around anybody.
Yeah.
It was a real drag for me. So the iPad and working with an iPad became the way to go, because I can work anywhere, anywhere.
Yeah. No, I know. iPad's very cool, and you guys have to have a most powerful iPad. So
That's a big difference. Last Christmas I got a iPad, the new one, but it wasn't the Air and it wasn't the Pro. I've noticed a difference in the CPU of that thing. It can't go as fast as my Air does. That's almost 5 years older than it.
wow.
It's a different way to look at, recording, because a lot of people, I think, use GarageBand with their iPads and stuff to plug into
Yeah.
that. But there's better programs out there for really good DAWs. Cubasis, I just got that one. It's a great program for people to like record pro drums.
Yeah.
It's legit. It
Yep.
is absolutely legit. So that's
Want
kind
to
of
say
fun.
hi. Want to say hi to a couple guys that are in the stream this morning. I've got Jim Flies 2. Good morning. I've got CCM Drummer. Good morning. I got Eric F Drums. Good morning. Hi everybody. We are talking with Chadwick Perry. We are talking about how we make YouTube videos. Chadwick does all his on an iPad. So do you have like the maximum number of gigabytes of
Yeah.
space? 256, is that what it is
No,
today? Or
oh goodness, mine are all 120. Everything.
yeah.
I need to start saving up for the new iPad Pro with the super big memory and the USB C instead of the Lightning connectors, and I need to, but I use what I have. I like working with limitations. I do. I've talked about it on my channel for a few times, but it creates style. I'm telling you, if you work with limits, for some reason, you can get style out of limitations. And I don't know why that is, but you start to develop style with less stuff.
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong. You can look at my kits and I have a lot of stuff, but I try not to use a lot of stuff all the time. I
Right.
really try to, I scale my stuff down constantly. I change my drum sets every day. I'm constantly switching cymbals out. I'm constantly switching the sizes around just to be able to, only have the things that I need for that one song. And
Yeah, I'm
then
with you
I'll
in that
change.
one. Yeah, I hear you on that. If I'm doing a song and it needs
Yeah.
concert toms, I'll put the big kit up. But if I'm doing something that just needs a small kit, I'll just put the small kit up. Because I think it, and I think the variety too is
Yeah.
kind of nice for guys like me. If I see a different drum kit up, I'm more likely to stay in your video longer because like, oh, he changed the setup around. Like there's this one guy who's been on here forever. I don't even follow him. I don't even remember his name, but he's got like rototoms and a small kit. It's the same kit all the time. He's made thousands of videos on this kit, and it's like I just seen it once. It's like doesn't do it for me. But every time you put up the Simmons drums, it's like let's see what he's gonna do with these today. You know?
Yeah. Today was different. Standing up and playing those was fun. It's
Yeah.
different. That was something I did, standing up and playing. Like, I've done serious gigs standing up and playing. I've got a cocktail kit with like one of the really long 15 by 24-inch bass drums.
Yeah.
So like I've played those out on country gigs in Nashville where I show up with a cocktail kit to play country.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Pretty funny. But I've done the Simmons things too, where I was playing in Nashville at different clubs and we were starting to get 80s things going in Nashville just to play. I decided I'm singing out front anyway, so we decided to set up in a line. And I put my drums right out front, standing up, playing a Simmons kit, and I learned that I could put a bass drum on a trigger, so I could like not have to worry about standing on one foot
Right.
and feeling like a flamingo trying to play drums. But that was kind of where that idea came from. But I'm always doing something fun. I try, because I got to keep me interested.
Yeah.
I constantly change my kits up a lot, and I've got a few, and I've had them for years. I had a guy reach out to me the other day asking about kits or something about what I had, like, how many kits do you own? And I responded, just enough to keep me out of trouble.
Right.
That was the only thing I could think about, because I've been playing for a really long time, so I've been storing a lot of stuff over these years. And
Yeah.
if I don't like it, I get rid of it. And if I love it, I keep it, and it stays around for a long time. Most of my gear I've had a really long time, a
Yeah.
long time.
Well,
So
I
that's cool.
understand that too. That's part of the fun of being a drummer. I'm going to do a whole show on stories behind my stories about my gear and stuff. I'm going to do one of those on all the gear I gave away that I wish I hadn't. Because I've got a whole bunch of kits that I love that I kick myself in the rear end for every day, you know. But I've learned to hold on to my favorite cymbals. That's one of the things I try to do. But
Snare drums are that way for me. I have about 14 snare drums, and I use them. And if you watch my videos, I'm in a constant rotation of about 8 of those drums constantly.
yeah,
And I completely change out my snare drums a lot because I try to keep my EQ the same and let the snare drum be the difference. Like let the shell material, let the depth of the drum. That's where I'm getting my difference in sound is from that drum. So I tune most of my drums are tuned to one pitch that sounds great. And when I hear a song, I'll go grab that drum and put that on the kit, and that's the one I use. And I can tweak it with 2 lugs. I can tweak the pitch going up a half step or down a half step to the key of the song with 2 lugs on the side, just going up or and a half step down with your turn of your key.
yeah.
So that's kind of how you can do that.
I know that trick. That's a good trick
It's
too.
a great trick. There's a guy that's doing this thing with the toms right now. I don't know who this dude is. He's got a way to tune, and I've tried it a couple of times, and you can only do it on 10, 12, and 13-inch toms, where he goes around, he makes it completely even, top and bottom, everything completely even. Then he'll take his on the batter side, he'll take 2 and he'll drop them down. And what you do is you start hitting it and you just keep twisting. It sounds terrible. And then all of a sudden it has a frequency that just opens up all of a sudden when it just hits a certain point. I don't know why. I watched this video over and over and did it with him, and it works. And I hit the drum and then I turn my key down. Then all of a sudden it goes from sounding just terrible to wow. And the sound opens up and everything is like huge, but it doesn't have to have any muffling. There is no sustain. And most of my drum things, I don't use a lot of sustain. I'm into the Quincy Jones sound. Everything has to be real tight sounding for drum sounds in my ears. But that pitch thing with that 1 lug thing he does it was mind blowing. So I tried it on a few videos of the weekend. It worked well. I was surprised,
Wow.
but there is no response. So if you don't have finger response, somebody asked a question the other day about playing on mesh heads. And mesh heads, you can do doubles really, really, really easy. And you
Yeah.
can go so fast on mesh heads. But when you switch to acoustic drum heads, why is the 16 not, you can't do it. And you try
Yeah.
to do an open stroke roll on a 16, you better have your technique together because it's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard unless you're tuning in like, Louis Bellson or somebody that's really high. But most of music now, my drums are so low, so it has to be all finger technique because there's almost no bouncing on anything.
Yeah.
So
That's ever since Steve Gadd did that back in the 70s, he dropped everything down, that low pitch tuning thing. Guys have been doing that for a long time. It's hard to get the bottom, even bottom sound was much higher pitched than what was going on in the studios in the 70s when they started muffling everything and dropping the pitch down really low. So we're
did you like
losing
that?
what the bottom sound, or did I like what?
Yeah, like having that 70s drum sound. When it came out, did you like it?
Oh yeah, that's what I tried to get immediately. I started trying.
Oh,
How do you get that sound? So I started taping things up, and of course I was a duct tape monster in the '80s. I would duct tape anything. I still do. I have guys that write me all the time saying, "What are you doing? Take the tape off your drums." It's like, dude, it's not what it looks like; it's what it sounds like. You know. There's a guy. There's a studio drummer, Mike Baird from L.A.
oh, I know him. He's one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah, he's a great drummer. He's got a little. Have you seen his Cubby show? Mike's.
No,
Oh, he's got a YouTube show. He's got about 150 subscribers.
I need to go look it up. Mike is a great drummer that's played on so many of my favorite records out of LA.
Yeah,
Everything, goodness,
yeah.
everything.
He's one of those guys, and so every time he does a thing on a snare drum, he picks a snare drum and he calls it Mike's Cubby, drum cubby, and then he plays the snare drum. But every snare drum he picks and plays, he's got tape all over it, and they all sound relatively dead in the same ballpark. So it's like his sound on any different drum that he picks, if it's a 5 or a 6.5 or a piccolo, it's like they all, every time he pulls one out and puts one up, I'm listening to it going, it doesn't sound all that different to me, because he's always taping it up. That's how he gets his sound. He's been doing it for years. So these guys that look at our YouTube videos and they say to us, oh, get the moon gel off, take the tape off. Well, they're not about sound. They're about looking at it. They're going, oh, I want my drums to look a certain way. Well, maybe live you get away with that. But even live, if I don't, it doesn't sound right to me, I don't want to be playing on it. So I want it to sound right first. If it sounds right, then I'll do what I need to do at it.
This little thing right here. Speaking of that little idea, these things, goodness gracious, everybody needs to learn how to make these. This is so simple. This is a Nashville thing, and let's see, who is it? Oh goodness, Dave Weckl has a thing that has a plunger that goes up and down and kind of has a gate that stops with felt on it. I looked at it and I was thinking, it was so complicated. I was thinking, I'm going to get this. It's a great idea, but it's going to be a problem. I'm going to break it. So I started coming up with an idea, and everybody should do this. This is Gorilla Tape. That's what this is. Gorilla Tape is what's holding these two pieces of felt together. Like, this is from Michael's. This is like a little there's a store that does crafts. Art
projects.
Yeah, this is just felt, and it's just the hole in the center. It lays on the drum. I just use tape just because it's easy. Once I get the super sticky off, it'll hold itself on the edge of my rim. When you hit the drum, it flies up and it lays right back down, and it creates a soft gate that is quiet. I can put this right under a microphone and you don't hear it, but it is gating the drum so it doesn't keep the sustain going. If you keep the vibration going, it's going to sing in a microphone, but if that lays on it, the vibration kind of just lightly stops.
Right.
But it is simple, and man, I'm telling you, it is really just that. Here we go. Like, I just pulled it apart, and that's it. I've tried so many ways, but this is the simplest thing that works so well, and it just completely gets rid of, like if you have a bass player that's playing the same frequency as one of your, especially a floor tom, you'll hear it, and the sound guys crank down the gates on everything. So I started using these, and the sound guys didn't have to use gates so much. That was a neat idea.
Yeah, I hate gates too. Gates going in are not fun. You can use them in the session, but if you're like, I've worked in churches where the guys are gating everything, including the snare drum, and you're losing all the ghost notes. It's like, you got to hit more consistently. They'd say to me, and I'd say, no, you got to turn the gate off so you can hear my snare drum the way I'm playing it. If you turn that gate off, all of a sudden you'll realize I'm playing a lot more really cool stuff on that snare drum than that gate that you think is so important I get 2 and 4 for. Because that's where my groove comes from, is that little ghost notes. They're going in and out of stuff, But I make those. I have a version of that. And I saw a guy named Paul Lime do that. He's a guy in town in Nashville. Paul does. He puts them on all his drums. That's one of his things too. So
it is a Nashville thing. It gets rid of that slight vibration, so you don't have to use a real, like, the gates are just, it's a drum killer.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you use sometimes 2 of them or 3 of them on a drum?
Use it for a sound. Then you're going with the Phil Collins snare sound. Turn the expander
do you use
on.
A couple. Yeah, a couple.
Oh, on those. Sometimes on a floor tom, I might use 2, but not usually.
Yeah. That's cool.
Usually it's only 1. That's about all it ever really needs. Just because I'm just trying to get rid of that slight vibration that the kick drum will make the floor tom have. I've also done it on this DW kit, which is 10, 13, 16. I've put those on the inside that lay lightly against the bottom resonant head. The reason I do that is for the exact same reason. When you hit that first tom and you hear zzz and you hear your snares completely keep buzzing, it gets rid of it. I'm telling you, Earl, to do it, you have to take off the bottom head and you have to undo one of the lug screws and put this whole thing on a lug screw, just like under the washer, and it'll hold it. But it hits up and it lays right back down and gets rid of that sympathetic vibration on that bottom head, especially on my 12 or 13 floor tom that I use. I have a problem with that one a lot for some reason, and it gets completely rid of it. So the drum doesn't sing too long because other things are making the drum sing.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just kind of a neat thing. It's a total Nashville thing that works really well. anything
that
that can keep it.
it's cool you're doing it inside the drum. I do this thing where I put a piece of moon gel in the center of the head,
Yeah.
just on the floor toms. So I just drop one little half a moon gel. It's not even a full moon gel, and I put it dead center on the head, and it deadens the bottom head so it doesn't resonate. Go,
I'm telling you, it's a little too much at
yeah,
times. And that's why I kind of started using in smaller drums. I started going to 10, 12, 14 instead of, ending with a 16. But that little felt thing on the inside of the drum just lays there. You don't notice it. The moon gel never falls off. You don't
right.
ever have to worry about that. So I quit using moon gels and I started using these little, um, there's these weird squishy things from Japan that are called kawaii. It's an art style,
Uh-huh.
but there's little bit squishy like little cats and little animals that they make for it's cutesy little things, but they're so incredibly sticky. I stick
Yeah.
them on my toms or snares are a lot better.
Wow. That's cool.
So that was
There's these thing called gel clings. I did a video on gel clings. You can buy them for like Christmas season and
yeah.
Halloween.
I've used
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
They're so thin they tear.
yeah, they do. But they only cost $1. You pay $1 and you got enough moon gel for 3 years.
A
You know what I
ton.
mean? A ton of moon gel.
I'm telling you,
Want to
Home
say
Depot
hi
sells
to
that stuff at Christmas every year.
let's say hi to a couple of friends. I see Claus is out here. Hello, Claus. And Lori Jones from Wales, thank you. And it looks like we still got 6 people in here. Do we have any questions? Let's see. CCM Drummer had a question. Chadwick, can you set up us with a link for the tuning video? Yeah, I'd like that link too. If you send me that link.
I'll find it. I sent it to a friend of mine in Atlanta the other day because I'm like, you need to see this. This is new, and I'll try to find it and I'll see if I can send that to you.
Yeah,
I'll see
just
if I can set that up.
drop it on one of my videos, and
I'm sitting here looking.
Jim Flies 2 says he uses the felt trick. I use a half of an old credit card and gaff tape. That's interesting. That's a little bit heavier, the credit card.
The credit card will make sense.
Yeah, it's going to really gate it. The credit card is going to really gate
Because
it.
I will stick. Yeah, the felt washer inside that it lets me do a floor tom. If instead of me having to use 2, I'll put a felt washer inside that, and it'll give it a little more weight. So it's kind of cool.
I've done the felt washer thing before too. That's another one of the things I do. I think that's what Paul Lime did. I think I was watching a Vic Firth video with Paul Lime, and that's where I caught that trick. He said it also flops. Don't hear them. Doesn't make noise. Oh, good.
Yeah, the felt. If you use the right felt, it is silent. It is so silent.
Your felt seems to be a lot thicker, like a thicker black felt. I have some thin white felt I use for a bass drum.
It's got to be heavy. It's not that same felt. It's a different type felt. This is something used for crafts. People make puppets out of this. Like it's that type felt. It's thick. But when it lays back down, it's silent.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see. Lori Jones has a question. Pinstripe instead of EG Emperor or G2s?
G2s and pinstripes are a lot alike. I use all Evans. I'd use all Evans. You can ask me question about Evans, and I could probably nail it.
Well, I know you're an Evans endorser, Chadwick. That's why you use all Evans, right? Let's be right. And I lost you again,
Nashville, and asked the guy about it. And they said the glue just has to be broken, is all he told me. And they sit there and, here, I'll show you a tuning. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And then I switched to Evans not long after that.
Yeah, the thing with the Remo heads, and you're right, it is about the glue having to be broken. You've got to prep the head before you put it on. I was watching Kirk Biscara do a little drum hack of how he sets up his drum heads. And he basically crunches the head all the way around once or 2 times. Just kind of crunch, 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 and then he puts his heads on. And I've been starting to do that in the last year, and it works much better than trying to tune them up really high and pressing down on them and cracking the glue and then resetting the tuning.
Yeah, Dave
So
Weckl. Dave Weckl did a. I tune my drums like Dave Weckl. He put out a video back when I first started college at the end of the '80s, early '90s, that was called "Back to Basics."
yep, I have it. Yeah.
I watched that thing a lot, and I that's how I tune toms. Is exactly the same way he taught because I like the way Dave Weckl's drum sound
Yeah.
was at the time. And I went to his site the other day. He has a YouTube site where he was live last Friday tuning toms. He did this whole kit right there with you and did the whole thing. And it's the exact same way he did it back then in the late '80s with that video for I guess DCI or somebody did that video. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was neat. It was neat to watch him still tune the exact same way today as he did 30 years ago. That was kind of a cool thing to see.
Yeah,
But
Dave's just developed his stuff. You know that Dave hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot since the '80s. He had a lot of he developed really all his things in the '80s, and then he just has been evolving. You know what I mean? So I could see it not being that different from what he was
yeah,
doing back then. You know, so
yeah.
um, so
This is the wrong video. I found one of the videos that do it, but I gotta find this guy. Sounds Like a Drum did a version of this guy's video. Drumio's also done a version of this guy's video. I wish I could find the original guy because he keeps it so simple. But single lug tuning tricks by Sounds Like a Drum. I'm sitting here looking up different people that are doing it, but they're copying this.
oh, sounds like a drum. Single lug
Uh,
tuning tricks. Okay, I
uh,
gotcha. Sounds like a drum's been around a long time. Yeah,
Drum Tech,
yeah.
but that's a video. It's called Just One Lug. But now they have, but this one, and there's a Drumeo version of this that they're copying the guy that came up with this, and it was different. I don't tune that way. It was neat to do it for a couple of videos, but I went back to the normal way for me tuning. But I don't know. It was a very neat way to do it. It was an unusual, strange way to change a drum sound quickly, and a very big, cool version. It's worth trying. It really is. So,
Yeah, I
all
think
right.
when you talk about tuning, there's lots of different avenues to go down. You know, do I use a tune bot? Do I use my ear? Do I detune a lug?
Have you ever used a drum dial?
I used a drum dial one time.
They're
I think it.
nice.
Yeah, they are.
They're expensive. They are expensive, but they drop on and they get it exact. He has a great way to do it. He has the drummers come in that he loves, and he writes down all of their TuneBot set or their settings, and he'll go around and fix it before the drummers get there to do their sessions, so they're in and out. It's that's a nice that's a nice engineer that's been doing all that work. But yeah, saving drummers settings in their dial. I used to use an app on my phone. It's not TuneBot. It was something else they got taken down because I think TuneBot sued them or something. But it worked really well too, and it was really just a Spectrum tuner, and you could actually just tune it by if you've ever seen the old strobe tuners.
Yeah,
Strobe tune. It was really all this was just a strobe tuner, but it gave you settings for crush drums, for DW drums, for Pearl drums. They had already went through and found settings for most everything, so you could just go through and pick them out. And that was a very cool program. I hated to get lost out, but
yeah,
it was a good idea. It was worth $5
yeah,
for the 2 years I got to use it. Huh.
yeah. So, some of those early apps were really good for the iPad and for the iPhone, and they're gone as the ISOs change. So
Oh, they do. I still use some of my old drum machines. I have an iPad 4 that I can't get rid of because it's got an old drum machine app that is better than anything I've ever used for old vintage drum machines. It's incredible. I still use it to get all my samples from. So I keep
yeah,
that old iPad around, and I hope it never goes down because I will lose that. And there's a clap trap on that thing too that I have to have. That I love the clap trap by Simmons. I do. It's so good, so good. But
yeah.
I like that stuff.
I saw you use that in a video one time with the clap trap on the iPad. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That thing is so cool. It's just not an 808 or a 909 sound. You can really create the hand claps that you want, which is great because you can tune them to the song. And I like that a lot.
yeah. Let's talk about electronics. You build your own electronic kits. You've been using them on some of your videos. How long have you had Simmons drums for?
I got uh I got my first Simmons kit when I was doing like an '80s tribute thing in like maybe early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing an '80s thing, so I had to dress up and get everything ready. So I wanted to be authentic, so I brought the Simmons stuff out, and I bought an SD. I had an SDS9, and the SDS9 brain, the SDS7, and the SDS7 brain. The SDS7 was pretty cool. I have to say, I liked it better than the SDS5.
Right.
But the SDS7, it was so heavy. It was 4 rack spaces high and weighed as much as a power amp from Peavey. It's awful. And I used it. I sampled as many things as I could with it. And I sold it on eBay probably like 4 years ago for like $600.
That's good. What'd you pay for it?
400.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's when you.
They just keep going up. Those SDS7s and SDS5s just keep going up. I'm like,
Yeah, it's out of control. Vintage gear is now out of control. Guys think they found like the classic sounds. So they spend a lot, and I don't know how you buy vintage electronics and know it's going to work.
It's scary.
Yeah.
All my pads, the piezo transducers in them have they it's bad. But
Yeah.
luckily, it's so easy to fix. In college, I started building triggers. I bought a D4 module, and I started making triggers for all my drums. So when I would show up to a club, this was me playing in bands in Athens, Georgia, in college. I would show up to a club, and all they had to do was plug directly into my D4. I had 4 outputs that they could just plug 4 cables in, and I was done. But I started learning how to work triggers, and I started building them onto the shells and doing different things. I ended up building friends of mine in college. I built their first triggers on their drum kits.
Wow.
With stuff I bought at Radio Shack. I just started figuring these things out. Then I built my pad controller, which is like a Zen drum. If you've ever seen a Zen drum.
Oh yeah.
It's you play it with your fingers.
It's kind of like a guitar almost, right?
Correct. Bela
Fleck.
Bela Fleck had a guy named Future Man who is Roy Wooten is his real name. He's a Nashville drummer, but he started doing it, and I watched him play it. So I thought, man, I can do this. I know how piezo's work. So I went and built my own. I did a whole video on my percussion controller that I built, but it looks like a weird looking '80s guitar. But you play it with your fingers. I don't know. I've always loved the electronic stuff. I've always loved drum machines. I love playing along with drum machines. I still love playing along with drum machines. I've always had, as soon as I could get a loop happening with the SPD things, I was playing with loops constantly in songs, and it made a really big difference. The sound guys liked it. The musicians that I played with liked it. It just made everything seem fuller having loops playing along with me playing live. So I've always kind of been a fan. So I've never laid off the electronics. I've just always thought it was the coolest thing ever was electronic drums. Now it's a little different. Electronic drums are toys in a way, but at the time they were so expensive. Some of those Simmons kits that I really wanted, the SDS9 when I was in high school, I wanted so bad. It was $3,000. I didn't, I'm in high school. I'm barely affording my little Pearl International kit I had at the time.
I remember when.
So,
I remember when the SDS5 came out, and all I wanted to do was buy one of those. And then they came out with the 8, and it was the 8.
The 8 was affordable,
right?
That was the first one.
And I thought, well, I'm going to get an 8.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, the 8 was gone. And what I ended up getting was a Simmons SDS1 with the little EPROMs.
Oh, I remember those. Yeah.
And they had like a run generator on it, and I would use that off to the side, and I would do do-do-do-do-do-dos because it was constantly running all the time, But it wasn't MIDI-able. It wasn't. You couldn't put it into MIDI or anything. And then I picked up a D4 in the '90s and some pads, and I actually used an Octapad for a while with the band. The band had an Octapad, so I was using it, and the keyboard player bought it. So we used it for recording and stuff, and that was interesting doing recordings on an Octapad. And
yeah, because I've had every version of that thing. I had the first version of the Roland Octapad. I had the Octapad 2, which I actually liked that one a lot. I used it for a long time. And then when the SPD came out, that changed everything. Because as soon as I could sample, I was a happy boy. Because I always wanted to sample, and samples were so bad when I first started getting into them, because you could only sample 3 or 4 seconds at a time on a full disc. It was not the same. It was tough at the time.
Yeah, I did a Shania Twain show a couple of years back, 5 years ago, and I put the whole show, all of the songs, on an SPDSX on 3 settings, not all 9 pads, and it was just one. I'd hit the pad, go to the next song, go to the next song, go to the next song, and it worked, for that gig. It was, but that's not the way
Now,
to use it.
and we're for that one, were you?
What?
Well, there's a lot of guys that use it like that. The SPD, a lot of guys in town in Nashville use the SPD like that. They use it to trigger off things. I don't see many guys in town using the Roland like I'm using it. They don't use it as a percussionist. Nobody. I haven't seen anybody use it like that at all. It's just the way I've always used it. I've always used it as a percussionist for me.
So your main samples off that SPDSX, I see you using hand claps, couple different snare effects kind of thing. You use some congas every once in a while.
Yeah, these are all my own
wind chimes.
These are my real instruments that I've sampled. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you definitely do this thing with your left hand and then keep the groove going with your right hand. That's very unique, and it's very cool what you do with it.
I always wanted to show somebody at Roland what I was doing with it, because I'm using the SPD differently than I've seen anybody really play it. And I'm still that way. I still watch people play it all the time, and I'm still not seeing anybody use it as a percussionist. And I'm thinking Roland should really pay attention to some other ways to use this thing, because this thing is so good. Everybody should have one. I really believe everybody should have an SPD. I do. It'll give you ways to trigger electronic.
Well, I'll be honest. I bought mine to pretty much work at a church. I was doing click tracks from the church for the church and loops. That's what I used it for.
And you would just trigger your loop and play along with it?
Yeah, I would trigger a loop. But I was actually running. I was like, the MD would call for me to hit the Dr. Beat, or for the click track. And I basically got this SPDSX, and I started bringing in some tambourine samples, shaker samples, and I made some loops for some of the songs we were doing. And they would lock up with the click, and I was running the click off the top 3 pads. So I had an on. Then I had a program change, because a lot of times be like, let's go into the next song. And I could just click program change and go to the next click. And I would basically do my set list, 5 songs, and I'd pop them in there. And I had different click for each song. And I had different pads that were set up for different things I wanted to do. Maybe a loop, maybe a shaker loop, maybe a tambourine loop, maybe nothing, maybe a sound. And I did that for about 3 years. I was using it pretty heavily. And then now it sits there, and I don't use it for jack anything anymore.
You should just use it for the hand claps. They're so worth it.
Yeah.
I've used that thing for so much. I'll show up to gigs in Nashville, and like there's a girl I played behind her. She was just on The Voice. She came in like second or third, but I played behind her, and she pulled up a Whitney Houston song that I'd already had the drum loop sampled. Man, I hit that thing and watched all the musicians and her turn around with the biggest smiles on their faces as all of a sudden it sounds like the real song is playing along with us.
Yeah.
Goodness, it's just fun to do that sort of thing and just make people just go, wow, just because it sounds so different. They don't expect something to sound big. And you can get a really big sound with that thing in a small club, which is very cool.
And if you've got things set up you got them all set up, and you've rehearsed it, and you know where you're going with things, it works well. It works very well.
Oh yeah, I had to work with it by myself a lot before I started carrying it out on the stages with me. I had to really understand, how do I do this where I can't make a mistake?
Yeah. So I mean, and it does have a great metronome in it, and it's totally different than the Yamaha one, the Yamaha sampling pad. It's different, completely different. But I don't think we've exploited the percussion in there, and I don't think there's enough good samples of the percussion.
I've actually never heard the samples that were in it. Soon as I got it, and as soon as I got the new version of it, I deleted the whole thing and then load my card into it that already has my stuff in it. I've never even heard the sounds in that thing.
Oh wow! So
it can't be good. Most of everything that they give me on that stuff is terrible. So I get rid of all the stuff and I throw in 900 samples that I've been working on for the last 20 years.
Wow. Yeah, you've been doing this for a long time. I can tell you got the E-drum thing down, so you do it well.
I like it.
Well, E-drum from the perspective of a studio guy. I mean,
I'm friends with some of the guys. You know who a cat named Zach Brown is? And all right, Zach Brown owns a company in Nashville called Southern Ground Studios or recording. One of my friends is is a house guy there that runs. He's an engineer, but he called me up and they started sending me people from his camp to my house. Hey, Chad, can you help this guy learn how to work electronics? Because they're sending them out with an SPD and they have no idea how to use this thing. They would send these cats over to my house because these are friends of mine. Hey, Chad, can you teach this guy how to do this? Sure. And I'll teach them how to run this thing. And it's pretty neat just because if you never had a chance and you get to the point where you have to go out on tour, you got one. They're going to hand it to you and they're going to say, you got to use this.
Yeah.
They're all over the place, all over country music, everywhere, especially with bro country.
So who are some of the guys you've worked with that are out there touring somewhere?
Just drummers.
Yeah, drummers.
Oh, I don't even think about it. I don't really keep up with their names. I don't even think about it. I don't.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you? I'm Chadwick, and I forget their name. I don't think that's not a bad thing. You know, we'll never see each other again. That's the one and the only time that I'll ever probably see this person.
Yeah.
I understand that. It's a pragmatic view, but it makes sense to get what I've been asked to do done.
Yeah.
I don't know. Music is strange. You don't make a lot of long-term friends. It's almost all short. You know people for a few years maybe, and then they'll go off to another tour and you go off to something else and you don't see each other again.
Yeah.
It's real strange. There's guys that happen to me like that all the time. Crazy good musicians that I see playing everywhere and we never really talk, it's real strange. It's a very unusual, lonely lifestyle in a way to be a professional musician.
Yeah.
It is to me anyway, because it's fun for the 4 hours that you're on stage. That's fun. It is. And if you're playing an hour show, that's fun. Everybody's into it. But then all of a sudden, sometime, all the things just kind of change, and life keeps going, music keeps going, but the same gig doesn't stay anymore. So I don't know. It's a weird. I think so many crazy thoughts at times when I have to play, and I'm by myself a lot. When I have to go play, I have to drive. I'm by myself to a gig. I'm by myself leaving from a gig. I set my gear up by myself. I go hang out at the bar with everybody for a little bit, or hang out somewhere with everybody for a little bit to kind of have a camaraderie with people I haven't met before. And in Nashville, you don't know these people.
Right.
At all. I'm telling you, Earl, when we get asked to go play anywhere downtown, there's 50, 60 clubs in this one little block of Nashville called Broadway.
Yep.
And whenever you get asked to go down there to play, it is 4 straight hours. There are no breaks, 0 breaks. And the musician union, they don't mess with that too much because they understand what this is. If anybody takes a break in Nashville, your crowd will leave. It will be a mass exodus of people out of where you're making money. The only money you make in Nashville is tips. There is, you don't go play a gig and say, oh, I'm going to pay for $200. You might make 20. You don't know. I played for 4 hours. I played for 4 hours many a night and made $35. After beer, I made 20. That's real, and it's what it's like when you play from Broadway. You're down there to make connections, and you play to meet people. And you do. I've met so many beautiful people that have, hey, Chad, would you be interested in going out and doing these dates with us? Sure. But nobody commits to a musician. If you're a backing musician like me and all the other cats around me, your gig is only as good as as the artist is, and if they lose favor with anybody, you will lose everything. A friend of mine that plays with a Serious Journey tribute band, amazing. He called me up yesterday on his way to Texas. They had to cancel a state fair in Oklahoma the other day. And then right after that, because they got double booked or something, the promoter called them and canceled every state fair for the whole rest of the year for them. They lost so many gigs, and now he is doing nothing and sitting at home. Nothing.
COVID's been tough for a lot of people. I want to go somewhere with some of the Nashville stuff in a second. Let me say hi to a couple people. Tate Berkey's on. Good morning, Tate. Mateo's on. Good morning, Mateo. Claus, I said hi to Claus before. I do appreciate everybody that comes on. I know we usually do a lot more questions, but I think it's fascinating having somebody like Chadwick who's got a background. I want to go down that road of the Nashville Broadway scene. Did it help you get any studio gigs? Were you trying to get studio gigs, or
Whew.
you wanted to be a working musician in town or a touring guy? What was your aspirations when you got to Nashville? Where did you go?
When I got to Nashville, I wanted to be a touring guy. That's what I wanted to do. As a kid, I always wanted to be a studio guy because I always found it fascinating. And my favorite drummers were the studio players that didn't get heard about very much.
Right.
Mike Baird is one of my favorite studio musicians, though I have stories about him with friends of mine in LA that they don't like working with Mike.
I can see why. Let me tell you.
he's got a strong personality, and he likes to count off songs and scream the counts in the booth. And the guy that told me the story is so funny. He starts screaming, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the way he would count off a song. Like he would hide a number and then bring it back just to mess with the musicians. And he thought it was funny. The musicians didn't find it funny at all.
Yeah.
I've heard some great stories from some friends of mine that do session stuff in LA. But Nashville. I get to Nashville in the mid-90s. Country music is huge. It just came out of the Garth Brooks era of it's just blown up.
Yeah.
So I leave Athens, Georgia. I'm headed to Nashville. I'm going to play music. And I go to be a road guy. And the first thing I do when I get to Nashville is I go to auditions, and I find these drummer auditions to go and try. So I go meet people and realize that at the end of these auditions, some people ask you for money.
Mm-hmm.
What? And I'm like, yeah, that was $35, please. And I said, for what? The consultation we gave you. This happened. And this happens to a lot of musicians, Earl, where you get there and you expect to be doing something, and you do all this, and they said, that was the consultation. We'll see about getting you some work. That really happened to me within the first couple of weeks of moving to Nashville. So but I've done it. I went out, and you don't really know what to do. This is new for me. So I'm trying to figure these things out. I don't have any friends in Nashville that can help me at all. I'm on my own trying to figure these things out. And I started getting, this guy does start sending me gigs. And he says, hey, man, God, who was it? God, who was this guy's name? Oh, Kenny Arnoff was playing at a club in town, and his drums were already set up, and the guy had called and said, hey, Kenny's not coming to this guy that gets drum gigs. Kenny's not going to make it. Can you send somebody? I get a call. Hey, we need you to go down to this club. Now, this is a club that's only going to pay about $75
Right.
to play for 4 straight hours. And I'm like, okay, let me see what's going on. At the time, I was married and went and told my wife at the time that, hey, I just got a gig. I'm going to go out and play this. And then she said, after that, I've got an audition to go in for a cruise ship, and they're talking about sending me on a cruise ship. And she got so mad at me, and she says, you didn't move me to a town to leave, Chad. And after that, I took a year off from playing because I felt so bad that I moved to Nashville to leave. Because the more successful I would have been, I would have been gone. So I would have brought my wife at the time, to a town and put her in a town with nobody she knows. And then I get on a bus and I leave. That made me feel so weird. I don't know. It made me feel, I was 25 years old. All I wanted to do was play music. That's it. And that was a real hard call for me. And I had to turn that gig down. And as soon as I turned that gig down, everything died. I didn't get another that gig down, and it was at a club making dollars. And that was serious. So after that, I changed my groove, and I decided to really start learning how to be a studio drummer. I bought Pro Tools, I brought all my stuff, and I really started teaching myself. Even though I went to college, they don't teach you how to play drums in college at all. They don't. I have a whole different vibe about my college experience with that, but I don't know. That's tough because I get to the point where I'm ready ready to try to record, and I don't have the skills to do it because what they taught me in college was not what I need to know. I'm glad that I can play every single minor scale up and down a marimba all the way with no problems, 16ths flying. But those aren't skills that I needed in the real
Right.
world. And that was a drag for me. So I started playing live, and I realized that studio work is going to be tough. This is going to be hard to break into because these guys are really, really, it's a tight knit group. And those guys don't go on tour because the studio guys, if they go on tour, they will lose their spot and they will not be called anymore. That is a real deal thing. That is serious. If like Eddie Bears, if he goes out, Eddie is a monster player in town. But if he goes out, all of a sudden his schedule will dry up for a year in sessions. And then he'll have
Yeah.
to rework back into it just because of going out. But it's all choices. Then when I decided to go into playing live, get really serious about it, but I couldn't go out touring because of my, the wife at home, and I couldn't do it. So I decided not to go out on big tour things and start doing local small things. And then I got real lucky and picked up playing with I don't know, like a disco band that out of LA at the time, and they came to Nashville and got the gig. And next thing you know, they put me in rehearsal studios playing disco music. Now I'm in Nashville to play country. I'm now playing disco in SIR studios, and they're teaching us dance moves. And as a drummer, I have to do the dance moves with them. It's what the deal is. And so we came up and they did this. And as soon as they had us ready to go, we were put out on the road. And that's when the dates started coming. I'm telling you, it was 170 dates a year for me playing, doing this stuff
Wow.
constantly. It Thursday through Saturday every week. It was just what I did for almost 2 years, and just relentless. It just never stopped. But I never played country music. I only played, cover tunes, and I started liking it a lot. I started liking the whole idea of it. And how professional could we be at this level? And it was pro. Everybody was extremely good. Everybody went
Hmm.
the extra mile to make what we were doing so special, and I did too, because I went out and bought Simmons kits just to play the drums for these things. I went and bought different looks for to make it seem so good, and it worked well for me. And that's kind of what it was. And then later on, touring came, people started seeing me playing disco stuff. So I started getting asked to, hey, would you be willing to go out on this, go out and do this? I had some group called, I don't know, Blackberry Smoke or something. I don't know who they are, but they called me up, hey, can you come and, we need a drummer. And I found out that I don't look anything like these guys, and maybe I'm the wrong guy. That was a big thing too in Nashville. Age, goodness gracious. When I was 28 years old, I got turned down for a gig. I went to an audition to be like a road drummer for a touring artist. 28 years
Wow.
old, turned down
Man,
because I was too old.
that's
Absolutely. And I was like, goodness. I was like, y'all don't even know what I look like. And I might actually not look at 28. And I was thinking that was crazy, but I thought about it, and maybe those are not the groups that I need to play with. Oh, this isn't good.
well.
So,
We got a
wait,
question. We're gonna go to Tate's question in a second, but I just wanted to
yeah.
say something in there. That was very common in the 80s and 90s that you didn't have the look. I was out of a band because I didn't have the look. They wanted somebody who was 165. I was nowhere near 165 ever in my life, so I don't know what that means. But they wanted a guy who was skinny, thin, 165 to play in a bunch of clubs. I was 30 years old, and I was like, and I got 3 kids. I'm going, nah, this ain't gonna happen. It's not worth it. You know, but so the look thing is always a problem. But I think things have changed a lot. I mean, a lot of those session guys are now out there on the road all the time because there's no more session work the way we know it. It's a different world, and that's another topic. Let's answer.
It is not.
Let's do Tate's question. Question, Chadwick. As
Hmm?
someone you would like to possibly move to Nashville within the next couple of years, how do you get signed up for auditions that take place for touring bands? How do you hear about these things?
Okay, that's easy. Got to go downtown to Broadway. You have to play in the bars. You have to play the honky tonks, is what it's called. And you have to. Once you start playing in the honky tonks, your name will start being passed around. Once you can do that. Then people will ask you, there are songwriters that are in those honky tonks all the time. When the Ryman, which is a huge place downtown Nashville, has the Opry or the Grand Ole Opry, those musicians, after they get done playing, walk down to the honky tonks and sit in and just start playing in the bars. And it is mind blowing, Earl. Mind blowing. Come to Nashville when the Opry is at downtown.
Right.
Ooh, you'll go to the bars and it will blow your mind to watch the three fiddle players that were just up on that stage on the Opry just walk down and kill this Bob Wills tune, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I got cold chills thinking about this because it's mind blowing at times. But you have to get into the honky tonks, and that scene is the first part to open up going into the Nashville scene with especially recording. Recording is different. You're not going to go to many studios now. I'm telling you, my last studio I went into was probably 2 years ago in North Nashville, where I walk in, sit down, and play, and that was one of the last ones. Other than that, I get the sounds and I send the files. It's so much easier. I have better drums. I have better mics, and then I send my stuff out. That's kind of the session work now. But you got to do the honky tonks just to get your name out there. You will not be seen if you're not in those honky tonks playing those country songs for all those people.
I think that, and I have a couple friends that are, A players in Nashville, like John Hammond. He's a friend of mine, and he's in a band, Tim Aker and the Smoking Section. Tim Aker just passed away.
Oh goodness, but that band right there, woo, goodness gracious. Have you ever seen them?
Oh yeah, I actually played with some of those guys. And Mark Baldwin, the guitar player, produced the first album I was on. I went to Nashville, did an album in '87, and I realized I'm not moving to Nashville because I am not going to be working. I'm not going to be working where I want to work. I've had to take a tour gig and get on the road, and I had 3 small kids at the time, and it was not going to happen. So I stayed in Jersey and kept being a freelancer in New Jersey, and I just lost Chadwick. But we've been having problems with Chadwick for a while now. So I'm going to let Chadwick come back when he gets back. And Tate, you had another question. We will ask Chadwick in a minute. And I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to ask a couple questions while we're waiting for Chadwick. Chad's been having some problems with the internet right now. So I'll let this question come up next for you, Tate, when Chad gets back. But it's an interesting discussion with a guy who's actually found a way to make a living in Nashville, and touring is one of the big ways you do it, but like he said, you got to get in the clubs, and you got to network in the clubs to get the other work, and you got to be willing to go do the live gigs and the tour gigs. You have to make a decision too, because if you end up in the studios, back in the day, you ended up in the studios and you didn't tour. And if you took the tour gigs, you ended up touring and you didn't play on the albums. And most of those guys that are left from those periods, they will tell you that. There's a couple guys that crossed over. A guy named Rich Redmond was one of those guys that he got Jason Aldean's tour gig, but he also did a fair amount of studio work in town. So I think Chad's coming back. Here he comes. We're going to add Chad to the stream real quick. So, all right, you're back. You were having troubles for a while, so I was wondering when you were going to get back in. So Tate had another question. I'm going to let Tate's question go up again. Are you ready?
Sorry, I've had to plug in, so I'm over here having to speak straight into my straight into the phone right now.
That's fine. That'll work fine. We'll make it work. It's called making it work, So Tate asked, how do you feel is the best way to network in Nashville? I think you answered that question pretty much. It's to get into the clubs and start doing all that stuff.
And that's easy to do. It's easy to do. All you do is just go down and say, hey, I play drums. And next thing you know, you're ready. People just start calling you, or you just start looking on Facebook, and there's constantly there's a Nashville drummers page and a Nashville musicians page. You have to be on it and get the notifications on, because they will say, hey, I need a drummer right now. And you have to grab a cajon or your stick bag, and you have to run downtown right then, because they've had somebody not show up. That's how you really do it. And if you show up when somebody didn't show up, you're going to get calls a lot.
Well, that's a big thing. That's a big thing in my world. I used to do those kind of gigs in Jersey. When I stayed in Jersey, I was working in wedding bands, corporate gigs. And I was a guy that people would call and say, hey, we need a drummer now. And I'd show up. That's how I did it at 19. That was my first gigs. My first time playing country was a guy basically calling me up 2 hours before saying, I got a gig tonight, I can't make it, can you show up? And I showed up. And then the next night I had another one of those gigs. So I played 2 country. I didn't know anything about country music. I just knew how to play a cross stick and a little bit of a shuffle, and it was back in that time. But those were the days, as we say.
Yeah.
Tate's got another question. Great to know. Do you guys really have the walking encyclopedia in regards to popular music? Can you play it? Yes, I think you need to be, right?
Yeah, but I also use we all have books and we all have iPads now, but it used to be books. You have to have a ton of stuff. I've got probably 800 songs in my folder, so I can go to anything quickly. And you have to be able to read fast, and you got to be able to read in the dark, which is a little tough.
Yeah.
So you have to learn these songs, but there's about 100 to 120 songs down on Broadway that you have to know. And it's all the big country hits of the 90s. It's some of the classic country hits. It's, Wagon Wheel from Now. It's all the brand new bro country stuff. Anything new you have to know. Anything classic rock you have to know. Anything country from the 90s you have to know, because that gets played all the time. And then you'll have to know some Waylon Jennings and some of the classic people.
I think that's the same
That's
thing
really
being
it.
a jazz musician or a rock musician. There's a certain catalog you got to know. And then there's using your ear when you get there, what's appropriate, because the guys you're going to play with are going to be, they may not play it exactly like the record, but you got to know, basically, you got to be in the ballpark. You got to show up and be ready to play in the ballpark, right? Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a little stressful because I'm reading the whole night long because I haven't committed any of these songs to any sort of memory. I am really reading, because if you're a reactive drummer and you're just going to come in and play and hope you can just do good because you're talented, you're not going to get called back. You're not.
Well, I didn't know there was it's interesting. There's a book now that you can actually pull from, and so is it Nashville number system stuff or?
Well, when you're there, you make your own books. I've been making my own books. My first book was, God, it was something like this thick. But you make your own. You have to start writing your own charts, and you got to get it. But there's also a Dropbox folder for all the musicians in Nashville. That it's where I get all my bass music from, and it's tons of stuff. It's like 6,000 songs, and that's the crazy thing. It's for anything. Somebody pulls up Rose Garden, and you can pull out a 1978 song that you've never heard before, but I will play it perfect because I'm going to read it perfect.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to read that stuff in the dark, and that's hard. You have to, so that was a big thing for the iPad for me. So I went to the iPad quickly and loved being able to read on the iPad. It was a big deal for me.
Let's see what else we got. We got any other questions here? Jim Flies too. Tate, you got the goods in style. Expect to play a lot for free compared to Philly. 100 guys move to Nashville every day. Yeah, there's a lot of competition in Nashville. There's no doubt about that one.
There is, but your personality is where it's at, man. If you're a nice person and they get along with you, you're going to do well. If you can get along with people on a van, because most of these tours are not on a big bus. You're on a 15-passenger van with a bunch of gear shoved in the back. And I don't know. I wish somebody could have told me this stuff before I moved to Nashville. But I didn't have anybody to ask questions about. It would have helped me a lot just to not be disappointed.
Yeah, I think the personality is half the gig, to be honest. If you can't get along with people, you can be the greatest player in the world, but if you can't get along with people, you're not going to have to keep the gig.
Nope.
I mean, and you could be a pretty moderate player, and have a great personality and get the gig. I mean, I saw Eddie Bears at Modern Drum Fest back in the 90s. He didn't blow me away what he plays.
No, he's a piano player.
Yeah, he's a keyboard player. I know he is.
And
he's a solid drummer. He's a solid drummer. But he doesn't play anything fancy, but he's best friends with all those guys. He's in the know. You know what I mean?
But his session work started pretty funny. He's on a session with Larry London playing piano.
Yeah.
And then Larry asked him about something about playing drums, and so they get to be buddies playing drums. And then Larry can't make his session. Hey, just send Eddie to do it, and that's how it started with Eddie.
Yeah.
He lives in Antioch, Tennessee, and goes to this Kroger that I go to, and I'm like, wow, hey, there's Eddie Bears.
Yeah,
funny.
I mean, he seemed like a sweet guy, a really nice guy. You know, when at the festival.
There's a term you're going to hear. That's a term you hear a lot, and people use that term a lot. I didn't understand it at first, but sweet, and I now I get it. But at the time, I was like, well, I don't understand that. But it just means you're kind to other people, and
Right.
that shows when you're having to deal with people on stage. Everybody's got their persona on stage, and that's who you are on stage. But when you're off stage, is when people, if you like, if they like you or not, are you going to stick around? You gotta have a personality that is easy to get
I think that's one of the most important lessons you can learn. And for a guy like me, I don't have a natural smile face, so I'm pretty intense. But when I get with people, I kind of smile and I kid around, and I don't take things too harshly. When I take criticism well, because when you're on a bandstand with people, and I've done gigs where I didn't know anybody on the gig, just like you've done, and you show up and you got to play songs, and they're saying, back in my day, there was no book. I did this Russian Polish New Year's party once, and four of the guys in the band only spoke Polish and Russian. They didn't speak any English at all, and three of the guys spoke English, and all they were saying to me, well, I didn't know the songs because they were in Russian and Polish, most of them. So yes, that was it pretty much. And they knew how to drink vodka, though, I'll tell you that much. But they would basically say bossa, cha-cha, blues, and he just kind of locked in and found the groove and didn't screw up. Just hold on.
So what you're saying is they could have brought in an old Casio keyboard and just hit the button for bossa nova at any point.
This was way before a Casio keyboard was invented, by the way. That's how old I am. So this is back in the day where the drum machine was one of those, rhythm boxes on the Lowry organs. That was a drum machine.
Wow.
Right before the Lynn drum hit and all that. It was 79, I think, the year that happened for me. But it was crazy. I do remember the one guy saying, I want to cut a hole in your bass drum head. And I was like, no, you're not cutting a hole in my bass drum head. Just put the mic on the bass drum. I'd never been mic'd before, and I didn't understand to come ready for miking. So that solid bass drum head was my sound, it's like, but that's another story for another day. Let's see who else we got. We got some questions coming in. Amazing background stories and info. Chadwick, I think your name and personality are big pluses. Well, that's nice. That was a nice comment.
The personality was big, and I have found that out. I'm friends with a guy that he puts bands together, and they're for touring bands. He has the artist, and then he goes, okay, I'm going to put the band together. And that's what he does. He came and interviewed me one night at a club in town I was playing, and he was wanting to talk to me about something. He didn't tell me what it was. He just wanted to talk to me, but I didn't pass the interview, so I didn't make the gig. But still, that was neat that, you might have to go and just talk with somebody. This guy's already seen me play a bunch. He came to talk, and I guess whatever I had to say wasn't exactly what he was looking for with that tour, so I didn't get picked.
Wow. Yeah. That's interesting too. Yeah, that it can come down to that. That personality thing is a big part of it. So let's go back a little bit and let's talk about some of your drum building. You're a big drum builder. That's what you're double Deuce Drums. So have you sold a lot of custom drums?
Never sold one, Earl.
None. You just build them for yourself, just for yourself.
It was an idea that I had. Was double Deuce Drums, and I'm moving back to Nashville. I'd left to go on a tour for a while, and I'd been gone for almost a year, and I'm like, okay, I got to go back to Nashville. I cannot get out of being in Nashville. So I was getting ready to go back. I'm like, oh, let's start something new. So I decided to drop by a drum company in Nashville when I was looking for an apartment again.
Mm-hmm.
And I went by this little company, and they were building drums, and they took me through their whole process. And I got to see every single thing, all the way down to the DeWalt screwdriver they were using to drill holes.
Which company? Can I ask that question?
They're not in business. They were called Razorback Drums.
I heard of them. A
long time ago. Very rare. I'll see maybe one of their kits every once in a while in Nashville, but not much. But it was the first one. And as soon as I could see it done, I'm a visual learner. So as soon as I saw it done, I started designing my own things, started buying stuff, started figuring it all out, and just started doing it. I can read a tape measure. I can figure this out. And that's exactly how I did it. It wasn't anything crazy. I'm just like, I think I can do this. And I built my first kit, which is my turquoise sparkle kit that I use.
Right.
And I still use it. And after I built that kit, I went and took it into a studio to play on a session. And after I got done, sound checking, I went into the control room for the guys. And then all of a sudden, the manager of the studio came in and he says, "Damn good job." And that's all he said. Then he left. And that made me feel so good that I built something that the owner of the studio said something positive about sound, because that's what it is for me, is sound. And so that was a cool thing for me. And then I got into the idea of building a smaller kit. And this was based on seeing Chester Thompson play in town. Now, don't get me wrong, all these people, they live in Nashville. Chester Thompson teaches at Forks Drum Closet if you want. If you need lessons with Chester, you can get lessons with Chester Thompson.
Right.
It's that sort of idea. I saw Chester play at this club one night. He was just playing. It was about a $50 gig. Chester's playing. Yep. Right. That's the guy with Genesis. $50 in Nashville.
Yeah, I know.
So they didn't teach me this in college. So he was playing a DW kit, but the short stack DW kits in this little club. And I was so blown away that I went and built my set almost next week after that. After seeing Chester play those DWs, I couldn't believe how good they sounded at 6 inches deep. As for all the toms, all the way down to the 14-inch 4 toms, only 6 inches deep. And I was like, this is cool. So I went and built it, and that has been one of my favorite kits I've ever made. I still use it and record with it to this day. I'm fixing to go redo the finish on it next week.
So you did one in wood. I've seen one of your cut down shells, acrylic kits. Right? You've got an acrylic kit that's cut down.
Yes.
Yeah. Was that a set of crush drums? Or
I did that as an... It was.
Yeah.
They sent me 2 kits. Crush gave me 2 kits like that because I wanted I didn't want the regular size stuff. I really wanted 10, 13, 16. Right. So my rep at Crush at the time made that happen for me. But when they did, they had a bunch of extra stuff. So I ended up getting an extra, kind of got 2 kits. Is what it was. So for almost no money, I ended up with 2 acrylic kits. So I make those, I cut those down, and I tried to use those as just an acoustic kit, but they didn't sound that great. I don't know. They just the material is so thick on those acrylic shells. Now it's not like the Vistalite. It's different now that it's poured. But oh god, why am I doing this? Okay, so here we go. So no, oops, hang on. I got to turn the guitar amp on. So that kit, I decided to make it an electric kit just because it was it was a neat way to look. Nobody's ever done an electric acrylic kit that I've seen. I've been looking for all kinds of custom, drums on YouTube. Nobody's done one, so I thought, well, this will be the first. I'll go for it, and so I did.
I'll tell you the guy to look for. It's an old modern drummer. It's the guy who used to play with the Rascals, Dino Danelli. When the Simmons came out, he built all acrylic kit with Paizo tweeters. Dino Danelli.
Yeah,
he had one. He built it himself too. He just tore it apart and built his. It was pretty cool. Right. I don't know if I have a picture of it. I might find, but look him up. Dino Danelli of the Rascals. Back in the 80s, he did that. But you're right. Yeah. I don't see a lot of guys doing acrylic for this.
I've just never seen it. I don't see why it couldn't be done. It's the acrylic shells are about as cheap as I can buy wood shells for.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you started building drums. I guess you do your own bearing edges and all that stuff. You do everything, right? Do you buy Keller shells as your starting point?
I used to. I don't anymore. I used to, and that was all in the before times. I used to buy all Keller shells, and I used to do it that way just because that's kind of, what DW started using with Keller shells was DW. DW decided to start making their own shells, and now they're so good. But it's different. I've got a guy in Nashville at Drum Supply House in East Nashville, and now any kind of shell, anything I now do, they do it. Their bearing edges are so much better than mine. Like I can put it on my router table and route them and stuff, but he's got it set up. So they've got it down. I can go pay $35 and have them do it for me.
Right.
Done.
He does both sides for
Done.
$35.
35 each. Like your
35.
35 a side. But they have to sand it down flat to restart it.
Gotcha. That's cool. So
That's kind of what that is.
well, I know you're fearless with a drill and fearless with cutting stuff, so I've seen you do a few things, change your kits around. That's pretty cool. That's definitely.
I'm not afraid. Yeah. I am not.
Let's talk about cymbals for a minute. Okay?
Mostly. Sure.
All right. I know you got some Peisties. Were you ever a Peisty endorser?
Never. I've tried to be a Peisty endorser. I've tried to talk to Mary Peisty. I have talked to my friends that are Peisty endorsers, and that was a tough one. It never happened for me ever, and I always wanted it to. But now I look at endorsements different. I don't really see a need for them. Like, I'm endorsed by the people I'm with are ProMark. I'm with Evans. Anything right. Diodario I'm with them. JH Audio does my in-ears out of Nashville. And that's the only ones. My cymbal endorsements and my drum endorsements have all fallen off now over the years.
Right.
So I just don't have them anymore, but I don't really see a need for them. I got 4 sets of pristine Pro cymbals. I got all my kits that are great. I don't really see a need to have to buy or get more gear or promote people anymore. Don't get me wrong. I am a fan. These things, they're different. They're better than anything I could ever build. They are. It is a different, taking these apart and really, really taking them apart to seeing how they're built. Man, wow. They can build this so much better than I can do at my best day. So I've just learned to love these. I'll probably, I still like to goof off with stuff, but I don't know if I'll ever build another kit. I don't know. The smaller drums were that was a huge point for me. And that's when I really thought about trying to get serious with building my own company, was when I came up with that idea and really built them small. And I saw the reactions from all the sound guys, all the front of house guys couldn't believe that I was able to not have stage volume. And I could also have that kind of sound through the speakers out front. And I thought I'd done something really good. I was thinking I could sell this idea to cruise ships, to churches. This was who I was thinking I could promote this idea for, low volume drums. But every time I talked to any drummers about it, they were offended. Like, they were offended that they could, like, why in the world would I want to play low volume drums? Right. And I started seeing this might be a problem. So I was thinking maybe I don't need to go talk to churches, because I was thinking I could really go do this. And in Nashville, the churches are so production oriented that hopefully I was going to be able to work, but I kind of backed off and just kind of went back into playing and quit making stuff like that. And just like, I think I'm just going to go play for a while and then let's go back out and play on the road for a while. But that was kind of my drumming building stuff. But it's a neat skill that I'm glad that I have.
Definitely. It's definitely something that's kind of fun. It's a fun little thing to have in the back. I love tearing my stuff apart and fixing things up. The ability to be able to fix your instrument is important, I think. And understanding your instrument and building it and putting it back together is so. Like, I broke my snare drum strainer the other day. It was stupid. I stepped on it. It was open. And I was rooting around my Studio B, the one where the concert tom kit was, and I kind of tripped and landed on it and broke the Dunnett. I had this beautiful Dunnett throw off that was really only made for Dunnett drums, that the guy who built the drum for me got from Ron Dunnett, basically. And it was a special piece, and it was broken. And I was like, holy crap. So I had to go look for another Dunnett throw off, which I found, which is not the same one because you can't get it anymore. And it worked, and I came in and I replaced it, and now it's fixed. It's working fine. Everything's great. And most people won't notice anything, but it broke my heart to spend $70 for nothing. I shouldn't have had to spend the money on, you know what I mean? But the ability to be able to do it is the ability to be able to do it.
Oh, the Dunnett.
So what were you going to say about the Dunnett stuff?
The Dunnett stuff is so like the DW the mag throw off of DW right now. That's an easy one. It's simple.
Yeah, and I think if I was getting if I was building a drum today, I would probably put the mag throw off on it. But the fact that I already got the Dunnett throw off on it, it was like, I'm not going to change. That's like drilling new holes in a shell that doesn't need any more
Oh
holes in
God.
it. You know what I mean? But this is the fun. I think you're breaking up again. You back again, Chad?
Yeah. Now, one thing
Go
going
ahead.
back to. Oh, I am back. There you go. Hey, Earl. But no, you go ahead, man. I keep getting kind of cut off because of where I am.
Yeah,
in
I
my
know.
house.
I understand. And it's always tough doing these kind of connection things because sometimes one connection's better than the other. Today it's you having issues. I've had my issues plenty on this thing, so with lives. But I think StreamYard's pretty good at like if I let it go, I think it'll get most of what you said eventually and put it in the videos in the after show. So let's see. There's one more question up here. Let's see. Taste good. And breaking the bank does not equal getting the sounds. You're right about that. Having the most expensive gear does not mean you get the sounds. You can get the sounds with the right gear. That I think it's having the right gear, don't you think, Chad? Having the gear, the right gear for the song that you're doing. I mean,
It's the it's it is the right gear, no doubt. And where the right gear comes in is looking at drum hardware. Like certain drum hardware, you play it and it doesn't move and it is a rock. But some, like say the 3000 stuff from DW had issues because it would rock. And I got rid of anything like that. But it's the right gear. Certain gear, you get what you pay for. I do believe that. I believe that some of my snare drums are worth what I paid for them. Absolutely. My kits, I think all the DW kits are worth the money I paid for it. My cymbals, worth the money I paid for it. If I bought, like worth it, I would never have what you have to have
yeah.
those sounds. I do believe in that. I do. There are certain snare drums that are $800 because they are great.
Yeah. What's your most
There
expensive snare drum that you bought that you've paid for? You're gonna pull it out for me. Okay, I got it.
This thing. This is neat. This is it's called a C4.
Okay.
By Crush. This is the heaviest drum I've ever picked up. This thing is nuts. It is so heavy. When my rep told me about them.
Is that solid brass? Is it like cast brass or is it
copper?
It's copper.
It's copper. And I don't even see the butts, the weld. God, it's so thick. This drum is their high. These were the highest end things that Crush made. They were called C4, and very few people even got these things because they were so expensive. But my rep knew that I liked the copper hammered one, so he made this one happen for me. I think I got this for a third of the price that they were being sold for. So it was still expensive, Earl.
Yeah,
it was. But this drum is so heavy. It's incredibly heavy. This thing is just nuts.
Well, it sounds like it's a cast drum, like kind of
that would be
like a bell brass kind of thing almost, but it's copper. Is it that thick?
It's copper. It's got it's
oh, it's got the lip. I see the lip in it. Yeah.
It's
so I guess
got the edges are folded down, so it's got a flanged edge.
But copper.
So it's not. But my God, this thing weighs 1,000,000 pounds.
Yeah, and it's got die-cast hoops on it too. That helps it, right? Is it die-cast on the top and triple flange on the bottom?
Yeah.
It must be a nice sounding drum.
Yes.
And what's it? Is it 13 or is it a 14?
This is a great one. This one, 13x7.
Yeah, it looks
13 by 7.
I thought so. 13x7. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I have a lot of 13s. I think I've got 4 13s, and I've got probably 8 or 9 14s.
What do you like about the 13 size?
Yeah, that is.
What do you like about the 13s?
For me, at the time, it was how I was traveling at the time. My kit that I told you about, this only 6 inches deep, every bit of that fit in a case, and that snare drum also fit in the case, and it fit on my backpack. I wore it like a backpack. It was a conga case.
Okay.
And all the drums stacked in it. So I had a 14 floor tom, 13, 12,
10, all that went into one conga case that I could walk into anywhere with it on my back. My whole
Wow.
kit. Like that.
What hardware
That's how
did
I
you
did.
use?
So that's why.
What hardware were you using for the cymbal stands and stuff like that?
The flat bass DW stuff.
Yeah.
Like and I still use them today. They're super flat. The only other ones I do love Yamaha stands. Worth it. Worth it. Absolutely. I love Yamaha stands.
Yeah, I had a set of the Yamaha, the 7 series back in the 80s that I still have on my kits in here. But my travel kit now has a set of the Tama Classic hardware, which is the remake of the Ludwig hardware basically.
Oh.
And it holds, it's 21 pounds in the case. All the hardware, except for the seat. I have to carry the seat separately, but you want a good seat. You know, you don't want to shove your seat into a little case.
No. Spend the money on a good seat, y'all.
Yeah, you spend the money on the seat for sure. But I get 3 cymbal stands, a tom stand for holding a tom, a snare stand, and a hi-hat in one little bag for 21 pounds. It's
That's
worth
good.
it. Yeah, and if you're doing a travel kit, that's what you want to do. I mean, I'm traveling with a 10 and a 14 floor tom and an 18-inch bass drum and whatever snare drum I'm using. But definitely you want to be able to get in and out of a gig as fast as possible. I think the thing that weighs the most these days are the cymbals. Go ahead.
Goodness, my cymbal now the cymbal in 2 different ways, but it's all based around golf bags. Like if I'm traveling in town and I'm playing something easy, I will take these little small DW flat bass stands and I can stick my whole thing in a golf bag. Remember, I've got this drum kit is on my back. One arm is carrying a golf bag. The kick drum's in my other hand. I'm fully walking in with a full drum set, one trip. That's how I did it. Because I wanted to be that way. Yeah. But that's also why I chose 13-inch snare drums, because I had to have the tier step down to make that work in that case.
Yeah, to make
that's why
it fit.
I did 13th.
I could see that. Mm-hmm. I have a couple 13s. I have a Steve Jordan, 6.5 by 13. I've got a Omar Hakim 5 by 13 that I pull out every once in a while. I just seem to like the 14s better for some reason. It's just a traditional thing.
It all depends on the music. I can't use a 13 for everything. A 13 doesn't sound good on every rock song, but a 13 sounds great on a bunch of dance songs, and I play dance music.
Yeah. Dance music
So
works.
I like a 13 on those things just because I can really change the sound around.
Yep. Let's see if we got another question here.
But that's kind of why I chose 13.
Studios. Kenny and Dave Weckl have their own studios. That is the session work today. No studio is going to hire anyone that hasn't been there for 30 plus years. I guess he's talking about, Jim, you talking about Nashville studios? Because, I mean, are all the Nashville studios still there anymore? I mean, Music Row is like, Music Row is kind of a bunch of condos now, isn't it, down there?
It's not much. Even the Sound Kitchen is still open. Ocean Way is still open. All those are still on Music Row. Ocean Way is still doing well. There's a few over there still doing really well, but most everything now is people can do it on their laptop.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty much the way it is. Do you ever do any work over in Franklin or any of those places? You over there and do some work?
I used to, not in the last 3 years. I used to live in Franklin before I moved to East Nashville, and that was a while back, but that's when I was working in Franklin more. But now that I'm not there, if you're not in the scene, you don't get called. You don't.
Yeah, you got to be in that town, and that
you have to be in the scene. You have to not only just be in the town and be ready to get a phone call. You have to also kind of be out
in the
scene.
Hey,
how are you? And it's networking. And if you're not networking, you're not working.
So, how much time did you spend at Fork's Drum Closet? To network. Did you do any networking there?
No, I didn't really get along with other drummers. My networking came from other musicians. Drummers weren't going to really get me extra work. Not really, because they're always going to be looking out for themselves because they got to pay their bills just like I got to pay my bills. That's kind of, it's a little different when all of a sudden you're in Nashville with a bunch of other people that are just as good as you are, if not better than you. And everybody has to pay their exact same bills to EMS or the phone companies or whatever. Right. We all still have to do that. So it gets a little cutthroat at times because if they can't play, they will pass your number along. But if there's a chance that they could get the gig, you better get ready. You're going to get stepped on.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So let me ask you about the Nashville drum shops. Have you spent any time in the old Forks versus the new Forks? Because I used to go to the old Forks all the time, but I haven't been there since Steve Maxwell took over. So
the new Forks is nice. It's just big, and they had to get out of that area. The 12th South area that the old Forks was in has become so expensive. All the new condos, all the new stuff, Vanderbilt now has condos all over there. There's so many people that have bought that area, and the regentrification of that area has made that property skyrocket. So they were able to buy a new building that was 3 times the size of the old Forks Drum Closet, and it's just about a mile away. It's really close.
It's real, so it's not that far off. Oh, that's cool. Because I used to go over to Corner Music and Forks all the time when I would go to Nashville. But I haven't been to Nashville in 5 years, I think, 4 or 5 years now. So, but I used to love going to Forks. That was my place to go hang out whenever I went to Nashville. You know.
Yeah, I do hope the NAMM conventions come back, because NAMM this year in Nashville was pretty bad. Nobody went. Diodario didn't represent, so none of the Diodario artists were there.
Wow.
And it was different. I hope NAMM comes back, because that's a real good thing for Nashville, and it was a bad showing for them to do it this year.
I think the whole music industry, if we really want to talk about what COVID did to the music industry, it's just a mess right now. I mean, let's talk about YouTube for a second and what we're trying to do here on YouTube. And I want to say hi to Michael Perry for being here. He's another one I know, and Keith Scott for being here on the show today and hanging out with us for a few more minutes. And I will be out of here by 11. I have yoga at 11 o'clock. So it's a religious thing for me now to be out for yoga. But let's talk about a little bit about YouTube and why it seems like YouTube's waning. I don't know about for you. I mean, Chadwick, you're coming up. But I'm sitting there, and I've been doing this now 4 years, and I've got almost 5,000 subscribers. I got 1 million views, you know, whip-de-do, you know, party. But what I'm really seeing is there's just a glut of people on YouTube and Instagram, and everybody's eyeballs are got so much stuff to go look at that there's no time for. How much time do you spend watching videos, unless it's something you want to watch, right? I mean, that's what I find myself doing.
I watch a lot. Oh. I don't watch it. I don't watch television. I haven't watched a regular TV in probably, I don't know, 8 years.
Right.
So I completely went to YouTube completely. So the only thing I ever watch visually, and everybody I know, is YouTube. You know, the kids don't watch any part of anything that's not YouTube. They do not. You know, if it's a television, we haven't even turned our cable box thing on in 2 years at all.
Wow.
So YouTube was it for us. I don't really see YouTube being an issue for that, even though my channel's growing right now, which I'm glad. But I don't really see it being having. I don't know. Did they send out a bunch of things to you about trying to create more shorts and stuff like that?
I didn't get anything on any of that, unless they're sending it to my Google Mail, which I never read, so it's possible.
That's where I think that's where it comes in, because that's where I read is my Gmail. But they sent me a bunch of things about it, you know, and I just can't get inspired.
I hate shorts.
To go in some new ways. They're not good. They're not good. Like, you know, TikTok is great. If you're TikTok, I do better on TikTok than I do on YouTube. Easily better on TikTok than I do on YouTube. But I use YouTube to do everything. YouTube is my main place that I go to create. And then from there, I go to the other platforms. Instagram is the one that I think is the struggling more than anybody right now. When I watch or look at Instagram, it's not fun for me anymore on Instagram. And I don't know why. It should be fun, but it's just not. It's I'm seeing the exact same things over and over and over.
I think Instagram is just like Facebook. It's just they're feeding us crap, but they're not letting us create and be found. So they feed us what they think we want, and they just keep feeding it. And then you can't even clear your history really, where they don't stop feeding it to you. I mean, once you get in like the search feeds and stuff, it's like you have to turn it off. You have to basically go, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this anymore. I don't want this. You have to do it 50 times before they get the message. I don't want this anymore. But they keep feeding it to us. I think I just find I find Instagram to be as terrible as you're saying, except I have a couple friends on Instagram that are great pro drummers that I go, I want to watch his stuff, but I don't really want to watch Chopsville, you know, which is all you get fed to you all the time, you know, is chop, 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 chop.
I wonder why they would choose Instagram as their medium of choice over YouTube.
Here's the funny thing. A lot of the pro guys can easily start getting followers on Instagram for some reason. They can't get it on YouTube. Like Mike Baird. We're talking about Mike Baird. And I go please sub Mike's channel. I mean, he's interesting. You see his channel and you see his snare drums. But they don't understand. I don't think the pro guys know how to deal with YouTube, like really create content. Like Mike's trying to. He's trying to create a show. Come watch my show, but he's only got 300 subscribers or something like that, maybe less. So it's hard to break in. It's much easier to break in with a couple clips of yourself on Instagram, and you got a name, and the people will search names like Steve Gadd, or they'll search somebody and they'll find you. But they don't do that as much on YouTube apparently, or somebody else's stuff comes up. Like I come up for Steve Gadd. If you search Steve Gadd certain song, like I may show up in his feed. You know, you search Steve Gadd. It's crazy. YouTube's a little different how you search. So I think that's part of it. And it's harder to get traction on YouTube, I think. It's hard to make money on YouTube. If anybody trying original content, it's still hard to make money.
Is it hard to make money on Instagram?
I don't know how you make money on Instagram. Is there money to be made on Instagram? That's the question.
There has to be. And TikTok also. With TikTok, you can get to your certain point. My son explains it better than me than I am. He tells me what to do, and I go, got this. I'm on it. So my creativity and his idea, I'm good.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't even want to go down the road of TikTok. I just have no desire to do that, you know. But Instagram, it's easy for me to do Instagram because all I do is chop up my videos that I make and chop a couple seconds off. I don't mind putting it there, but I don't want to feed shorts to YouTube of my stuff. Then they only watch. If I'm lucky, people watch a minute of my videos, 2 minutes tops. You know, there's some guys that are watching here that may watch my whole video. Thank you for watching my whole videos. I do put the effort in, you know, so that all the way to the end.
Let me tell you what. Watching all the drummers from doing the Mad Cowbell React show, I have learned that even the drummers that are on, all they want to do is play the song. By the time they get to that last chorus, they are getting bored. And the last minute of that song, they're going to give me something fun. And that's where I find the content is they're going to give me something fun because those guys that were playing perfect get bored after that second chorus. So they want to kind of, hey, I want to chop. Hey, I want to do something. And that's usually where I try to find the content is after that. So that's why I have to watch your videos because by the end of it, you're going to give in and it's going to get you where you want to give me some notes.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of me at the very end of the video. But I'm really trying to be faithful to the guys like CCM drummer. Can you play it exact? You know, I try to be pretty darn close to what the drummer does and be faithful to it, but with a little bit of me. Like, I do videos differently than I do it for my own reasons. You know, it's like, I want it to sound good. Like I put out the Chicago the Ballet for a Girl in Buchanan. Okay. The only other person who's done that is Tate, who's on this call on the show today. And Tate basically had to take the whole track, the whole Chicago track down to nothing and hear almost solo drums because Chicago will not let it be released. It's basically getting blocked. So I did the same thing to put that out. That 12 minutes of me pretty much being too loud was because I spent
all that work.
Yeah, I spent 2 hours on that doing that song. That was the longest I spent on a YouTube song, and it's because it's not one song; it's 7 songs. It's these little these. It's a classical piece, is what it is. You know, you start with "Make Me Smile," you end with the ending part of "Make Me Smile." That's they cut the ends and put them together, and made it a hit record. The rest of that stuff is like all these other songs. So I spent 2 hours doing that last Saturday. And there was like no way I'm not releasing this thing. So I dropped my volume. I have a great mix of me playing that song, but no one's ever going to see it on YouTube because I can't get it on YouTube. I may put it on Vimeo someday.
Yeah.
And say,
did it go to Instagram?
I put a couple clips on Instagram that I slipped in, but I tried to put the whole thing on Instagram, IGTV, and it didn't get through. It got blocked. So it's just kind of funny how we're trying to show what we want to show. Like, I want to show guys I can play this kind of music because I love this music. So that's what I'm playing. And that's why I try to be true to it. You've got a different reason for doing things. They're both creative outlets. You know, for me, it's like when I'm watching myself play this stuff, I'm being creative. I'm trying to be the guy that played that hit record and throw a little bit of me on there too and lock in with it. Because I love the song. I love the music. I'm only playing stuff I love. I don't want to play stuff I don't love.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm not playing metal stuff. It's not that I can't play metal. It's like I don't want to play metal. It's not my thing. You know, I don't sit here and listen to most of the metal stuff. I could probably play AC/DC, no problem. I play Poison and all that hair band stuff. I could totally lock that stuff down. You know, it just doesn't float my boat. I'd rather try to play something a little more complicated that Danny Serafin played or Steve Gadd played or Jeff played. Because there's some nuance to it that I picked up as a musician. I said, I want that nuance to come out. Can I make that nuance come out in my playing? And then when I do it, I go, oh, I can do that. That's cool. It kind of stuck in there. 45 years later, it's still in there. That's cool. You know, that's what I'm doing. You do it for a different reason. Why do you do YouTube?
I don't know. It gives me something to do. I need things to do constantly. If I'm not building something, I need to be creating something constantly. So this is my creation. I quit doing everyday content and back in March and went to just only 3 days a week about. So that was a change because I decided instead of doing a bunch of content, what if I were to only do half the content but make it a lot better? Not my playing, but the video work. So I started pushing into the video stuff, and I really have. I've got it now, Earl, where I can knock out 4 cameras, every single thing, easy. But I found a way to do it with using 3 cameras, one above, one on my right, one on my left. Yeah. I'm taking 2 takes for every song, my first take and second take, and that's it. Then I get up. So my second take, I take one of the cameras and I move it to a different spot, and that gives me another camera. And I use that footage to be able to interject into my other stuff, to be able to have extra camera footage, even though it's not me really playing. There's a lot of the parts in there that it is me playing eighth notes on the hat, so I can use that footage for that little section. Right. That's how I've been doing 4 camera views. But that's what I've been doing, is really trying to focus on, can I get better? And that's really what it's been doing. The Mad Cowbell show, I do like it. I find it fun. I love reacting to the other drummers and really making reactions. It's me first time seeing this stuff. I love that. It's hard. Some of these songs, I'm not very good at playing them, but I'm going for it. I'm doing Måneskin is what I'm reacting to today. I've already played it. I'm got to react to this group called Måneskin. Have you heard them yet?
Nope.
Brand new. This is they were from Eurovision. Do you know what Eurovision is?
No, but
it's like
I didn't know what Korean pop was either, so K-pop. I have no idea.
It's a Swedish show about musicians and being over the top. But there's a band called Måneskin. They've got a huge song out right now that a ton of people play. So I'm reviewing all that today. But it's just stuff that I'm not very good at playing, but I still go for it just because I think it's, if I'm going to talk about everybody, I need to be able to go and I hack my way through their songs.
You do it so well. And, the funny thing is, my problem with the newer stuff is not that I've tried a couple newer things. I did one for my grandson. Everything is Awesome. That song, Everything is Awesome, the Lego movie thing, Tegan and whatever her name is. And my problem is when I'm playing that stuff, I get too much in that studio drummer head, and I'm like trying to lock with what they do. You really just have to play over top of that stuff. You have to say, hey, you know what? Forget about it. I'm just gonna play what I want to play. And when I get into that head, I'm okay. But I have a hard time doing that in my studio, believe it or not. When I do covers, I'm trying to play it right. That's what I'm really trying. And when guys say, you didn't play that part right, I'm going, well, I played it like me, and I played it as right as I could make it, But when I'm listening to the stuff you're doing, you play over top of it, and you got all that independent stuff, and my head just blows up. I just can't do it because I've done a lot of newer sessions for young songwriters down here in West Palm, and I know how we cut tracks. You cut tracks this way. Let's do the choruses first, and then we'll go back and get the verses. And they're going to take me, and they're going to beat detective me, and they're going to lock me on the grid. And that's how we write. That's all this new music is written that way. And I just find that to be so much not the way I love playing music. I like playing the whole piece.
Wow.
You know?
All the
It's a
sessions
different
that I do-
mindset.
The sessions I do in Nashville, they're still, I read top to bottom on that page. Absolutely.
I know. That's how everybody else does it, except for in the singer-songwriter land of people who now have Logic. They have Logic at home, and they're writing it, and they want to make their masterpiece. And basically what they're doing is, I want this part for this section, I want that part. And Christian music is this way completely. This is the worship scene now. And I do a lot of that stuff for people. And it's not me playing with a bunch of guys. It is me literally playing, all right, play this tom thing on this thing and to play this backbeat thing here. And it's down, and it's like, I did a session a couple weeks ago for a friend who's done an animation. He's an animator and he's a creative guy. And I hope I get a copy of his animation when he's finished with it. His name's David Urbanati. And David, he basically came in here and he had like a loop on it and a drum machine he kind of grooved for his song. He just wanted some real drums on it. And he just let me play. And he sent it to me beforehand, so I was goofing with it. And then he showed up that night and we sat down and he said, come in at this point and just take it to the end. I played one pass. He goes, that's it. Sounds great.
That's it.
And he didn't change very much. He just used a little bit of live drums of me in there, a couple tom things, a couple cymbal swells, and whatever I did. And that was probably the closest thing I've had to a session where I just played what I wanted to play in a long time, where I didn't have somebody sitting there going, let's change the kick pattern on that. I want the kick pattern to be more this,
Oh, that seems so strange to me. The bass part dictates that pattern.
There was no bass part. I'm playing with a acoustic guitar player, and this is going to be it's going to be a scratch. It's going to be a scratch track. So it's not even going to be there when I'm done. So I can't even lock with them. It's like there's something
They
about
have to
getting
lock with you.
right. They have to lock with me, and he's going to grid me anyhow when he's done. He's going to put me on the grid. I worked with this producer's a good friend of mine, and he's young, he's a worship leader and stuff. And he was working on his solo album, and he heard something. He said, "Do you think you could put some brushes on this?" So I did this brush thing. I don't know if he's going to lock me or he's going to let it go, but it was another one of those things where he didn't micromanage me, so I think he liked what I played. But I did like 3 takes of the brushes that time. That was the fastest I ever did for this guy. I think I finally got his formula down, though, when he asked me to do something. Just play what he wants,
Yeah.
Break it up the way he wants to play it, and it works. So there's a different way music's being made today is what I'm saying, and I think I don't relate to it. I just don't, and that's why I'll sit there and play some 60s or 70s tune, because I know that those musicians were playing in the room together, and I've now got to lock in with those guys playing together. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lock in with them and make it as tight as possible, because that's what you did in Nashville.
I'm telling you, it's hard. Ooh, it is hard to lock into the cover tunes, because I leave the drums in there. I don't like taking the drums out. I want to kind of have it in there because I want their effects on the end of mine. So when I hit my snare drum, I kind of want to have their effect in the background happen. Mm-hmm. Is the idea of why I leave the drums in there to do it. But also, God, locking in with the 70s and 80s. I played a song the other day. God, what was it? It was not La Freak. It was Sister Sledge. We Are Family.
Yeah, We Are Family. Yeah.
I did that one as the cover, and wow, getting used to learning where they rush and drag is hard. That's the hard part for me when I'm doing these things, because if I don't play with their snare drum, it sounds bad. It does.
That's why I took it out. That's why I take it out, because I don't want to flam it. And every once in a while, I'm a little behind, a little, trying to find it. But I've learned in Logic how to make a click track. And usually when I record with these tracks, I will keep the drums in almost all the time. And if I don't, it'll be the last couple takes. I'll say, let's try a few without the drums, and I'll pull the drums out and just play with that click, because the clicks are not perfect either. You see a moving click track, on the screen, because that's none of this stuff was done with a click where they were locked. I did some tracks for John Robinson, and they weren't locked to 92. They moved, and he couldn't get. He was like, well, why can't we just put the click? It's like, it's not locking up that way. I tried it, Here's the moving click. If you want it, use it that way. Now, he swears they recorded all that stuff with clicks, and I think they did, but when things moved on 24-track tape, if it sounded right and you were together, they kept it.
That's right. I can tell you why. I know what he doesn't know. It's the tape edits. On the 24-track tape, the way the tape edits work, the way they had to slice that down, when they put those back together, it's not the way that I see them, because I do it too on my DAW, and I'll put one track and then I'll put the other side, just because I'm getting rid of like an extra verse, because I'm shortening my songs anyway.
Yeah.
So when I do that, I put their drum tracks right on top of the other, and there's a lot of times that it is off, and I'm like, wow, y'all have already sped up within less than 30 seconds, and now it is a different groove, and I have to, when I'm doing these things, I have to go, okay, and I have to think, okay, I got to speed up in the second verse. Here we go. All right, got it. But it's the tape edits. They probably played it in time to a click, but once the guy with a razor blade sliced that tape, it was not going to be exactly perfect.
Yeah.
And that's why I found those tape edits a lot with older songs from the 70s and 80s.
And there was a lot of tape editing. I mean, when you hear that the song by Yes, Close to the Edge, was just basically 16-bar, 8-bar, 32-bar phrases that they had hung all over the studio, taped to the wall. And one day the guy decided to clean up and took the whole thing and threw it in a bag of garbage and threw it in the dumpster. And then the producer came in the next day, where are all those tapes that we were making this masterpiece with? And somebody climbed in the dumpster and grabbed them out of a bag. They were in there. And then they splice them together, and they make a 15-minute piece called Close to the Edge. You now understand how the 70s was making some of their greatest music that we ever loved. I mean, so it's kind of crazy. And now Pro Tools and Logic makes it so easy. You chop and you cut and you save. And we've gotten to the point now where music is mechanical. And it's great when a guy like you can take that music and do something on top of it that's cool and exciting. And I think that's why the Chops guys make that new music so much their own, because they're like, hey, I'm going to be creative with it. I'm going to do my own thing with it. And for an old guy like me, it's hard to get that in my head. Let's just play
really
Chops,
create,
because I played with too many musicians where I get yelled at for playing too much stuff on gigs. I learned young, like, you don't do that. No, don't do that. Just play the groove. So.
Yeah, I love watching everybody overplay on Thursdays. That's just fun to me to watch their creativity, and it's about creativity, and it's watching what they do and like, was that neat or was that just fast? It's neat being able to really break down and watch all these people play on Thursdays. So I appreciate the people that watch what I do, and I got a couple more ideas that are going, so hopefully they'll keep going like that.
Well, I hope so too.
I like watching chops. I like watching people chop it up. It's fun.
Well, I like your show, Mad Cowbell Covers. I'm one of the guys that comments. So, and you guys all got to check out Chadwick's channel. Hopefully, some of you might be new that don't know Chadwick. Hopefully in the replay, some of the guys will do it. I don't know who's going to last 2 hours on a replay, but I have people that watch my videos long periods of time.
You might be surprised.
I might be surprised. Anyhow, I'm going to wrap this thing up because it is getting close to 11 o'clock, and I've taken a lot of your time today, but I had a lot of fun, Chad, talking about things, and maybe we'll do this again someday, and I'll try to get you this MP4 file whenever I get it from YouTube or wherever I get it from, but I'll try to get it to you, so if you want to post it on yours, you can, or chop it up and post it. That'd be cool, too. Might actually be kind of fun. Somebody reuse it, you know what I mean? Have fun with it. And thank you, everybody that's watching, and you guys all have a great day, and we'll see you again when I do this again. I just want to let everybody know that I'm not planning on doing this weekly. I'm probably going to do this every other week, or I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I'm still playing with YouTube again, trying to figure it out. Anyhow, everybody have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye. And Chad, stick around a second.